Hi there, I'm Daz Smith and I just wanted to add an introduction to this video. This video has two parts. The first is the debrief video involving most of the remote viewers, myself as project manager, Jon Stewart the client, and Richard Dolan for his incredible knowledge of all things UAP. An additional part on the end of this video is myself and the remote viewers afterwards having a general chat about our feelings on this data and the project in general. Now, Jon contacted me in September 2024 to see if I would do a remote viewing project to ascertain the people involved with the filming event of this video to either confirm or deny the video evidence itself. I had previously seen this video many years ago and had recently seen a Richard Dolan interview with Jon a few months prior, which did impress me with the research Jon had put into validating this footage and his commitment to the project. Now, at the time, I was pretty much on the fence, but found the new information compelling, and I wanted to get this in the open for this project and for this description. I then tasked 4 great remote viewers blindly with the target. All the remote viewers had in the past provided very good RV data on previous projects and in their training remote viewing. My primary aim in the project tasking and setup was to get the remote viewers to describe all the people involved in the actual filming event to see if we could see if there was any evidence of film crew, production staff, or even puppeteers. By saying this, they did not, but they did describe more than asked for. They all describe a UAP retrieval event and the capture and movement of a non-human life to a man-made facility. Now, I have to be honest, this shocked me as this was not part of my tasking, but it's also not a known part of any existing narrative around this footage. So my thoughts are and were, where did that data come from? Now, as a caveat to this video and this project, I must state that all professional and organised remote viewing sessions are considered experimental. The accuracy of the data gathered during a remote viewing session is treated as tentative until verified by solid feedback, and this helps us determine how correct the information is. A remote viewing of a site or topic isn't fully confirmed until positive feedback validates that remote viewing actually took place. Until then, it's possible that the viewing exists only in the mind of the imagination of the remote viewer or all of those involved in the project. All remote viewing data should be shared with others as experimental, meaning its accuracy can only be confirmed if and when feedback is received. Any other claims would be considered unethical. As well as this video, we will share 170 pages of raw remote viewing data with you all, and the link will be down below. The RV process which trained remote viewers use to gather information can be confusing or hard to understand for those without training, but it's there for you to have a look at. Now, I would like to thank both Jon and Richard for joining us in this video, and to Jon Stewart for inviting us to participate in this project. It's the belief of the remote viewing team that we accomplished adding some confirmatory data points and potential new data to this ongoing story. All the remote viewers believe that the emotional data and the extra RV data experience were of real life forms and not of a fake narrative or puppets. But as discussed with the feedback notes above, only time and feedback will fully reveal. Hope you enjoy this video and the evidence. Namaste. Hi, Richard.
Hey guys, I'm sorry to keep everyone waiting. I really apologize. Also for
You
having to
didn't.
cancel out on the previous time. I had something last minute I had to do.
It's okay.
So
Yeah,
all
this
all
happens.
behind the scenes cloak and dagger stuff.
We've just been talking on a similar thread. I was explaining that ever since I started this project and I started emailing the results to Jon and then, talking to yourself, every time now I try to use my home PC here and email either you or Jon using my main email account, my entire PC crashes, and it's only when I try to email the two of you.
Really?
Yeah, crazy stuff's going on with it. Yeah.
I call that a conspiracy. That's spelled C-O-N, conspiracy. I don't know if anyone remembers that joke, but it is odd. I'm excited to be here. I just want to say, I know you're not doing the show yet, but your remote viewing team blows my mind every time. I see Coral there. I see Brian. Demi, were you one of the remote viewers for this? You were, yes.
Yeah.
I'm. You guys astonish
The,
me, and I'm just glad to be here. And John, it's good to see you again.
You too, Richard. Thank you. Nice to see you, sir.
Yeah, these remote viewers. I mean, you've seen Dimmy because she worked with the future forecasting group on the Lazar project with us.
I thought that's where I remembered you.
Yeah.
Yes, it's good to see you again, Demi.
And yeah, you know Brian, and Brian's one of my students at the moment, and moving towards operational work, which is why he was involved. And Carl, I've worked with for many years, is as well. She's one of the top viewers on what we call the RV circuit out there as well. And Susan couldn't make it right now because she's in Australia, and it's she's like 12 hours ahead. It's a complete different time for her down there, but
Yeah.
she apologizes for that. But yeah, I mean, this isn't we aren't doing anything formal with this really. I don't know how best to do this. I mean, I can show the outline of the project for the people that we're gonna eventually put this online to, and then the viewers here, they can talk about some of their key data and it's best to have them set because they're the ones that really experienced it more than me. I'm just a project manager on this one. And then if you guys have any additional questions as well, that because you guys are the experts, you might be able to pick more out the data than we as the remote viewers see as we're doing the project.
I'll do whatever I can do.
So
what
anyone
I have done in advance is simply I have my notes, my books, and things on A, crash retrievals, and B, I was just curious about allegations and claims that have been made through the years of extraterrestrial biological entity guests of the United States government. And there actually is a fairly long history of that. And maybe we can discuss that as well at some point, because it's really quite relevant. And I think a lot of folks are not aware of some of those claims are quite compelling, I will say. They're not just crazy people talking, making wild statements. There's reason to believe that a scenario like the one that, the alien interview video here, is true. There are reasons to think it.
Okay, so with this, I'm gonna share pretty much a brief outline of this project here. So this is the project report I sent to John and Richard. Okay, so this is just a project name we gave it, which is 06099961, and essentially it's just a random number. And in fact, it comprises of the date that I set the target up. So I always use that for my first part of the number, which was 6th of September. The viewers that were, let me make this bigger. The viewers that were this were Carl, Dimmy, Susan, and Brian, and I was the project manager on this one. So the actual wording for the project that we came up with between John and myself was the 1997 alien interview video filming event, the location of the filming on the day, date, and time, and the actual filming of the event. We wanted the viewer to just describe that, but I also put in this caveat in all the taskings here that we don't want the viewer to pick up on any rumors, theories, speculation, or social construct. And we want them to be totally ignored and only the real physical filming of the event to be picked up in this. And then we have our feedback sources, which was your interview that you guys did and also the video itself. The viewers did several retaskings on this. Dimmy did 2, Carl did 2, Brian did 1 retasking, and Susan did 3 retaskings. And what happens in a retasking is I might see something on a page of their data, and then I might say to them, on page 6, you sketched this or you said this, go back and get me more. But we always use their own data to retask them on. We never try to introduce anything new to it. We're very careful with the words we use on those retaskings. I'll miss the caveat there about, remote viewing being experimental until verified. What we'll do when we put this video out, I'll actually give them the entire report that they can look at this as well, so anyone can look at this data afterwards. But the summary of the data here was really interesting from each viewer, as you can see here. All the viewers described, which shocked, I have to be honest, it shocked me as tasker because I didn't have any preconceived ideas about this target. I kind of thought it might be real, but I was sat on the fence a little bit, really. So it was really interesting to see all remote viewers come back and describe a whole event, which is not what we asked them to do, but they all described what looked like a crash retrieval event and the people that were involved in the crash retrieval event. And that shocked me as the project tasker because A, it wasn't tasked for them to do, and B, if this weren't a real target, because we as remote viewers, we have to be honest, we can pick up and we can report back fictional events and targets. But what shocked me in this was the data that came back was so rich on a crash retrieval that I couldn't understand where that data would have come from if this was just a fictional event that only existed about, a faked filming in a room somewhere. It wouldn't have all this data-rich background of the UEP stuff. So here's a detail. There's a summary of Carl's data. She had details of a curved vehicle or structure, 4 biologicals inside, the biologicals involved with data and the consciousness. They were all sentient, even including the craft itself. They had a reptile feel to them. Targets an event, telling of truth through evolution and disclosure. Multiple biologicals involved. One smaller was scared, anxious, and uncomfortable. Communication felt difficult, like 2 different radio stations were static. They were here to plug something into the ground. I find all this very interesting. Maybe Carl can describe all this in detail on what was going on there. They were thin, bony, flexible, fast and strong, and the skin was leathery, tough and thick. They had long arms with 3 or 4 jointed shoulder, with a backwards thumb and 3 fingers ending in a pad. Large eyes with a small vertical mouth, a domed forehead high on top, and they claim not to be predators. I find that interesting as well. Multiple people were involved, 2 groups of 1 human and non-human, and the humans were huddled around something or in a circle. They were controlling. They responded to an outside higher power. 1 group had large eyes and heads and wear similar clothing and so on. And they felt very Star Wars to her, but very retro and underground. Dimmy, the target consists of land, biologicals, and structures. Involvement of structure in the air. She had an AOL, or which is what we have as a remote viewer. That's a bit of a guess that comes into our mind that we have to put to one side. And that was a Vimana, and Vimana, is like the ancient Indian scriptures of UAP type craft. The purpose was establishing an agreement between 2 different parties. One side human and military, representing a powerful country. The other side non-human. There's some deceiving going on. This all revolved around a structure, 2 separate meetings, one upstairs, and the focus being the target that took place in a hidden space underground.
That's incredible, by the way, knowing the facility that they're in. I'm sorry.
No, please, any of you guys interested at any point?
Well, when I see one side is human military, the other side is non-human, knowing that the videos clearly shows a glass partition, I don't think that's metaphoric. I think that's actually, describing what is going on, that the non-human is on one side of the glass and the military, and why military, which is what we show in the video. It's got Army generals in Class A dress uniforms. It's not government contractors. So I find that, again, another like check mark of completely accuracy. And the deceiving going on, we have heard from 2 telepaths that, a lot of times they felt that the beings were not exactly, and Victor says the same thing, that the beings were not exactly completely upfront with us, that we felt that they were completely honest with us, and we got more spiritual concepts from them rather than technical data. So that is a really remarkable RV session that I just
Awesome.
makes me it blows my mind.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dimi also reports that the biologicals were similar to the other people, wrinkled skin, thick, looks old, gray or dark. And she had an AOL here of Strieber's aliens. Looks like elephant skin, which makes sense from, all the descriptions we hear from abductees and stuff. They don't look friendly. They're on a mission, emotionless. There's uniformed, militaristic, biological, and negotiations and a meeting. One side, again, is human, uniformed, camouflaged, serious, hopeful, and high-ranked. And the other is masked with their intentions, very ugly, moves very sluggishly, is non-human, feels like a puppet. This feels very deceiving. And there's an agreement or code exchange for weapons, tools, or energy. And Susan, again, very similar stuff here. Silver metallic curved vehicle at the target. The target feels nighttime involving a vehicle. feels something lost or appropriated. Data indicates an object not running smoothly and failing. A sense of something hitting a man-made vehicle like a ricochet. Multiple biologicals converging on something on land, moving as a group. The vehicle has a pilot. I feel that something has happened to the pilot. The biological wears a uniform. Feels like a past era. There's a man-made structure with corridors. Biologicals work here in all departments. It's official with lots of files and records. There's a sound or a hum, a monotonous hum. She had very much on a military aspect here, talking about males in uniforms. There's lots of data on all that, and including a commander as well.
I say something, the green illuminated like a radar. There is that physiological monitor or some sort of monitor to the left of the alien, which has a distinct, bizarre green blip. Again, this is just absolutely, I'm gobsmacked. This is just incredible.
Yeah, she has that here with the a biological fine energetic, like a pulsing a signal. I think several of the viewers picked up on this radar type hum type pulsing signal that was going on. Yeah.
Right.
And she details these bios running across a terrain here, and I think she was talking about here the actual retrieval operation itself. She talks about stealthy people being involved in that. She then talks about where is it opposing sides, a scenario like the taking away of a downed pilot, a bio is taken captive, and a reference to a fictional legendary film and old style projectors. She was getting all this idea of film being involved within her RV session as well, which essentially the target is, for us to try to validate if the film was correct or not.
Right.
Des, before you go on, I don't remember. I don't know what you guys were talking about before I jumped in, but viewers really need to have this very strongly understood. That your remote viewers, this is how it always is. Totally blind, total blind to the target. I know you've said this, but it's really worth emphasizing. They're given just a number, right?
Yep.
Just a random generated number, has no meaning whatsoever. In your target that they do not see are the instructions. They have no clue what these instructions are. So what viewers really need to understand here is that this is coming out of a possibility of infinity.
Yep.
There's anything that your 4 remote viewers, one of whom is not here, could have discussed. And also, from what I think I'm right here, correct me if I'm not, you've done this many times with your remote viewers, but you almost never do anything to do with aliens or UAP or anything like that. Is that correct? Very rare. This is not a normal thing.
Yeah, and on this occasion, Susan, who's not here today, and Brian, this is, they're going through second year of training me. I've never given them a client related project before.
You could have given them, something on this year's World Series for all they knew. They had not a clue about anything.
Yeah.
And so this is essentially a very specific target. And as people are seeing, and will continue to see, all 4 of these are in their own way spot on and connect in an incredible, intricate way. And, I'm married to a woman who's done some great remote views, and I will just say, your group consistently has blown my mind. If I just could be permitted to say that. This is real. This is not pretend. This is not collusion. This is not good luck. There's something here that they're tapping into. So we've got 2 things here that are extraordinary. One is the fact that 4 human beings can actually do this. Let's just wrap our head around that, our minds around that.
Unbelievable.
This is a skill. It's a gift. It's something, from what I understand, we all have, but some are really good, like you guys.
Yeah.
But then secondly, it is very important that we continue talking about the actual subject, because that is important. And I didn't mean to get off track here, but I always wonder when people who are not familiar with remote viewing jump into a conversation about this, they don't necessarily know everything about the protocols involved. And it's very important for people to understand this is a totally, completely blind target. And I thought it was very smart that you, in doing the the instructions and the targeting itself tried to move the remote viewers away from getting into cultural phenomena or conversations about the video and all of that. I don't know how that would even work, but I think it does. And the fact that these remote viewers, as we will continue to see, are describing not just the context of the interview, but things around it, crash, retrieval, and all of these other types of activities that you have to ask. If you're a skeptic, you have to ask, where's this all coming from? Where does this come from? How does that happen? There's an ability, I believe, that people have to tap into something, some information that is there. I don't think our physics really understands how that works yet, but they're doing it. And so that's it. I don't want to get too derailed here, but I really feel listeners need to understand just how extraordinary this remote view is.
Well,
No, it's good. It's good for you to say, Richard, and thanks for doing it. Because I have to be honest, this is so run of the mill for me. And
yeah, you guys take it for granted.
Yeah,
you take it for granted, and you
Yeah.
forget.
Yeah,
you forget how incredible this is.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's easy, right? You're an insider.
Yeah. So thanks for that.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So, Brian, do you want? Are you happy for me to show your email? I mean, I can cut this out if you're not. The email you sent me about how you felt before doing the, and the emotional response you got from doing this. And to be honest, I actually picked you to do this target knowing a bit about your background, because I thought, I wonder what type of information the person that has that could bring back.
That was a good point Richard brought up. And to add to it, I've done, I don't know, maybe 150 targets, and I've never been targeted with an alien being. So when I handed my work into Daz, I actually apologized in my email because I thought I had completely missed the target because I'd never been. And when I was going through my data, there were many times, while I was working the target, that I would try to move myself away from the alien data because I thought maybe I was on a wild goose chase, but it just kept coming back and back. And so I was happy to see the feedback because, I was worried that I might have missed the target. But yeah, in my cool down, which is I don't know if all remote viewers do it, but I do a little 10-minute meditation before I do a target. And when I did this one, something happened that had never happened in any target I'd ever done. When I was doing my meditation, I had I have my eyes closed, and I got a strong visual of an alien in front of me, and it I don't know, how do you want to describe it? It impressed emotion in me that was so strong that I had tears running down my face. And this was before I even started the target. So I don't really know what to make of that. I've never experienced anything like that. And so that's what happened in my meditation before I did the target.
Brian, that's really amazing because Victor, while watching the clip of the interview where the being starts to get distressed, actually says on camera, and it's in the documentary, this is very hard for me to watch this. I've had so many people privately email me to tell me, Jon, I felt emotion when I watched this being. I had a special effects person write me anonymously. Look, there's emotion in that being. We can't do that type of emotion in an animatronic doll, especially back in 91 or 96. And I just wanted to say that I've had so many people talk to me, use the word being emotional, feeling a weird emotion, falling into the eyes of this being, so to speak. So I'm just, my jaws is dropped open with you, with that, your response to how you felt and that, and seeing that vision and stuff. And it's incredible.
Yeah.
Awesome, good stuff, guys. I'll go through Brian's summary quickly because he just went through essentially his email, what he sent to me. So a summary of Brian's data was an unconventional non-surface structure that floats in the air, oval, smooth, and pewter colored, has an electrical charge that makes your hair stand on end. It's dark in the environment, possibly more than one object in the air. There's a typical gray alien. It causes very strong emotions with the viewer. It's an alien in captivity. The alien was sick and resigned to its fate.
It's
The
incredible.
alien was tan, brown, smart, advanced, mission orientated, and it has kind of like a recon or scouting or surveying feeling about it. A lone survivor, mad, upset, cornered, and resigned. And I feel like a human had also died. Something to do with a welt rash or skin causing illness, and a strong smell of ammonia. And there's an inside location which is sterile, medical, and the bio is expiring, sick with despair.
Daz, I mean, again, to back to what Richard had said, this is incredible. They're not only seeing just an alien, but they're seeing an alien that's in captivity, which he was in this film. And he says about sick and despair, and the clip that is shown is the being in some sort of respiratory distress. I mean, it's not like, the being just sat there for 3 minutes and we ended the filming, or the documentary ended. It actually showed the being in despair. And again, one of the hallmarks that hooked me on this film was I wasn't seeing a gray colored being. The being was terracotta. It was tan, or as Linda Howe told me, she refers to it as peanut butter color. And Brian talks about this being tan in color. If the world isn't shaking their head right now, the cobwebs out of their head right now, then I don't know what else to say.
So
This is absolutely unbelievable.
if you look at my sketches, when I drew
I'll get those up.
When I drew the alien, I got out my colored markers because I wanted, and you can see I made little swaths and mixed colors together because I was very adamant about getting that terracotta color or kind of an orangish tan color.
Yeah.
And I don't often get my colored pens out, only if it's something, that one there.
Yeah.
So I was, very particular about the color of the alien.
Which is dropping to some people. And to me, again, I think this is a very valid, important thing to bring up. If it was a hoax, and folks, I'm not saying that it is real. After 5 years, I'm still saying it's not. I don't 100% know it's real. If you were hoaxing something, why would you make the alien tan or a color other than a white or a gray color? It doesn't make sense to anyone. It doesn't make sense to me. Why would you give it a rounder eyes than the real pointed almond eyes? But the coloring, I just don't understand why any producer, if this was a hoax, would choose a color other than a whitish or a gray. And the fact that you're on this topic is unbelievable.
For the audience here, we won't be able to go through this entire document with everyone because it literally is like 170 pages of remote viewers information. But what we can do is get some of the viewers to go through some of the highlights of their stuff. Some of the viewers that are here. So I guess Dimi was here first. Should we get Dimi to start with a few bits of hers? And guys, if you have any questions on the way, please ask. As I said, these are the guys that were actually there. So if you have any in-depth information, you'll be able to tease it off of them rather than myself as project manager on this one.
So of course I named the interview the project as from the persons that gave me this. I just wanted to point out just some things that from the first get-go, I've got this feeling of something was coming down, was falling. So these are my estimation, my results on this idea of something was circling, breaking away, falling, green, dusty smell. So something was coming from up, looping down in this movement that was like a crash or something. Okay.
Yeah.
With all the noises, and it was alive in that structure. I've got also the structure, but this was the structure where I've seen the happening. and in the right, it was the structures that are crashing down. You see, this was in the left, like a pyramid type, also like multiple rooms or multiple places, spaces, really, really glued to another, really interesting stuff. But I let it go and move on from that. And let's go there. And this is where I'm seeing exactly the place where probably was the interview. It was an outside building above the land of the ground level when I move in front to see the target, and down under were a lot of other stuff buried there. It felt like it was stony, it was grooved, edgy, and with rooms under. And when I moved to see above the place, and I've seen in your Richard and Jon, yours interview from 1 year ago, sketches from that place, and I was amazed for that because I really recognize the area and the surroundings from there. And this was the building inside down, kind of the structure inside down, which I've seen. And then I was left with this, and I said to Des, I'm sorry, I'm at this point, I don't know what to do. I've seen an ugly face, a being, something gray, dark gray, but for me it was like an elephant skin type of being, and I don't know what to do, a wrinkled skin. And he says, well, move on and see what's about this life. So I move on and see what about this life, and it was heavily moving. It was gray, dark color. It was not like gray, but I didn't know the most kind of color that I thought of. It was the elephant type of color, the elephant skin color. It doesn't look friendly. It looks like they're on a mission. It seems it was emotionless. And people were there, which were there in the gathering, were interested by power, by nuclear, by future, by dominion in some aspect of some future. And at this point, I've got two sides or two camps. In the left, which is like an L, an handed L writing, which is my symbol for life form. And in the right, I drew the ugly side, let's say. Probably the line of meeting could have been that glass that Jon said about it. It was a line of meeting or negotiation. I've seen uniform, suited, serious, hopeful guys, which was from that powerful country that I already said, was meeting together. They were meeting together to reduce damages or catastrophe or something like this. And it was a need to maintain equilibrium for masking, but they have mask intention. That side, which was the other side, which was the ugly one, which was the alien, or behind the alien, was they need something badly. They need a playground, a no man's land to fulfill their needs, like an embassy with full control. But it looks like there is a cold exchange with an agreement, like a blank card in exchange for a tool, for a weapon, for an energy like this. And then I felt the need to draw this figure of uniform suited male, tall, with high rank, over 5 years old, with a little white hair, and feel like it was in charge of this and for the other suited person. And when I moved again to the life form, it felt like he feels like it is in charge, but it also serves to other higher life forms and pretends to be in charge. It responds and threw out pros and cons, but it looks like it's a servant to others, a buffer life form. It has full power, but is far from being the main decision maker. The reason is to deceive that suited, uniform, militaristic people to accept their terms. And because of the egos of this person, this is made possible. And in the end, I felt it was wrinkled, folded, cover-skinned, old-looking, dark grayish color, thick skin, like an avatar aspect. And also, there are two types of ideology at stake. One is restrictive, immediate, tough, hard to adhere to, leave out courtesy, and it's obvious. And the other one is gradually, hard to project the future goal, comes like a needed help, and they are already indoctrinated ones to use and looks innocent. And of course, one ideology is about using those middlemen, ugly type of life forms, and the other one is dealing directly with the real harder rule decision maker, which in my session looks like this. And I will end with this because I don't know what to make of it.
So the decision maker, this is the decision maker behind the gray, ugly, wrinkly things.
Yes, it felt like the rulers or the intelligence energetics with no emotion, no compassion, like a cold mind, an orange hot color with humanish aspect, which reminded me of Bledsoe Lady, kind of, or Jesus or something like this.
Did you get any sense of the people, the ones in control of the ugly ones, their intentions?
And those who needed something very badly is not the alien, but are these guys, whatever it is.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But
Can I
you didn't
ask
pick
Demi?
up.
Yes,
Sorry.
please.
Sorry. Can I ask Demi? There are two things that really stand out, and I'm going to say something that I've never said before, even in my documentary. But when you saw that kind of like that altar box type structure, it was a remote viewer months ago from Europe remote viewed and saw the ancient people at that site of Papoose Lake where the facility is. And she kept talking about they were all always around or doing some sort of worship around a box, something of a box figure, an altar type figure with a big box on it. And the fact that you drew that is remarkable. Do you think that it's possible that you were getting a glimpse of a ancient past at that site where the facility, the S4 facility is?
At first I had like in the first 5 seconds of my session, the first thing that I drew, and I never drew before passing through the things, normal structure from the session, was a big box that was coming down. And it looked like a box. That was for me. So I don't know, but it felt old for me also. This is the only thing I can.
Something I want to say now. This is very sensitive. I don't want to seem like I'm a central casting general in a thriller movie, but it's what I've been told, and I've never said this before. But on April 22nd, 1991, the alleged date of the filming of that alien interview, allegedly, I have been told this by two people, there was one other being in captivity against its will, held more so in captivity than our being, which Victor even says, where he was interviewed in the interview suite, which is a more comfortable accommodation. There was one other being that was being held there against its will. It was aggressive. It was not cooperative. It was basically in a jail type setting rather than a guest. I've never said that to anybody. Again, I've never even said that in our documentary. And I find that, and it was a taller, more grotesque looking, and I won't get into the definition, and because that's for another time and place.
Wow.
But that was also in that facility, probably within feet of this interview. And one last thing I would like to say also is about this no man's land. And again, I'm just speculating, and that's my position here today, is that I find it funny about a no man's land which I have heard that the Papoose Lake area where the alien housing center resides, south of Area 51, was also a sort of a nuclear testing site, or had the fallout from nuclear testing sites and the Yucca Flats and Tonopah, whatnot, and where and that individuals that would go to the Papoose Lake complex, S2 Alpha and S4, had to wear, was it DOS meters or dose meters, little radiation detectors that look like a pen, pocket pen. And I just find that funny that she picked up on a sort of no man's land, because I think anybody would qualify that ground around this alien complex being potentially still radioactive would be a classic definition of no man's land. That's just my opinion. And again, just one other viewer's shocking take on this all. It's unbelievable.
It's a good insight there. Good question. I have a question for Demi as well, relating to the other being that you had just depicted a moment ago. Look kind of human. Could you get any other sense of that? And I have after you talk about that a little bit more, I have one other follow-up question for you about that. But I am curious about this other being. Did you sense it was on site, or that it was just lurking about
No,
somewhere else
no,
behind the scenes?
no. It was not on site. I
Yeah.
was looking for it I was kind of trying to find a move to go there, but their place looked like it was deserted in my
Yeah.
session at some point. Is the only thing that I can get from that, but not here. It was not here.
My other question is, so do you read alien abduction literature or books? Are you familiar with any of that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So have you?
Unfortunately, yes.
No, I get it. So that's inevitable. Are you familiar with the case of Betty Andreasen et al.?
Yes, I think does get me to that place like a year ago. I think it does talk me about this,
Yeah.
and it was really, really interesting. Yeah,
I'm
I
not saying it came from that. I mean, I'm astonished that you got so much detail out of this, but the fact that there is a human looking being actually could correspond with what she has said. Sometimes some people strongly credit her account. Some people are a little more skeptical of it. She was certainly very sincere. And the man who interviewed and regressed her for many years, Raymond Fowler, who's still alive, is an outstanding investigator and has total integrity. Still, people can dispute it. But the point is, in her regression, she saw short gray alien type beings as were
yes,
depicted, similar to what we have in the interview. But she also described human-like beings, taller, that were actually, in her opinion, in charge. It actually is, it complements what you were picking up,
thank
for what
you.
it's worth.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Awesome to me. Is that the end of your data there?
Yes, the end of my presentation, I quit and the
Yeah,
stuff.
again, for anyone watching
Sorry.
this, we'll put out the whole 170 page report. We can't go through 170 pages of all this data, in a short video. Coral, would you like to go next?
Yes, but I'll preface this by saying, what Richard was saying before, we don't know anything about what we're viewing. And sometimes, even with the feedback, it's still hard to understand. You guys can understand better than we do about the stuff we've got. I mean, I look at my sessions and I go, what's this? What's this? And it's only now talking about them that I start to get an understanding. For example, well, I had a really, really strong emotional response. I have sort of a very maternal energy about me. And so I was really worried about this being. But I also had the feeling that there was this type of creature, but there were also other type of non-humans there. And I spent a lot of time trying to understand who's human, who's not human, who some people seemed human, but I knew they weren't human. And I definitely had that thing of somebody else is in charge. There are humans here, but somebody's in charge of them, and they probably aren't human. There's some kind of mix in the power structure where they're non-humans. But so, as you know, my computer crashed and I lost my presentation, but I have a few things. If I can share Word now, that looks like it might be it. Yes, I'll try share. Okay. So that's the first creature I get. you're looking at a drawing of a face, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can see it.
So this creature, I immediately start feeling worried and maternal about this, and you can tell it's not well. I felt really bad about it. And there I have it not being well, being down on the ground. So I had this very strong emotional reaction to some kind of creature. But then I'm looking at other people in the room, and I have a feeling there's this kind of creature, and that's what he really looks like. Yeah, so we're talking about other beings. There was this. I had the feeling that I'm trying to work out what's going on. So I must say that I started off and I was involved with a crash. I had a vehicle that was squid shaped, that had a feeling of geez, it made me feel sick, and it crashed. And the vehicle itself was sentient. It's operated through sentience. But then I was moved over to this, and I have like sitting around the interview table, people and a table and the creature, people dressed up and masked. And then I'm also trying to describe the humans, and I said this human reminds me a bit of Gorbachev. That's that. So I'm trying to describe who's there. I'm trying to draw them. Another a chap who reminds me of a young Bush. It feels 50s. And then I'm describing these. These are the humans. They've got caps on. They look. They've got uniforms. It reminds me of old America. They've got uniforms. They're wearing woolen clothes, thick woolen clothes. These are all humans that I'm trying to describe.
I almost want to leave this session because I'm so freaked out right now that it's beyond. I'm not lying, folks. I am being as honest as I possibly can. When you just said old woolen clothes, I I'm just telling you what the report said from your government defense intelligence agency, that there were two thought projection telepaths there. Both of them were Carthusian monks from the Mount Equinox Monastery, from the Transformational Monastery in Mount Equinox, Vermont. And they had to wear the traditional, it wasn't something we'd see in Robin Hood, but it was a brown, I've seen it, a brown cassock with cut off sleeves and then a white long shirt underneath that. And that cassock was made out of wool. And
Wow.
and I have the picture of one of the monks, and I'm really trying to hold it together here.
I want to jump in with something else. That's just putting it out there. So, Coral, you said you saw someone that reminded you of Gorbachev, Mikhail Gorbachev.
Yeah.
And someone else who reminded you of President George Bush Sr. Obviously, I assume George Bush Sr.
Younger Bush.
Right.
So for as many people know, but maybe some people don't. So this interview, we believe, as John has said, took place in April 1991. That's
Correct.
the date we're given. So in 1991, Mikhail Gorbachev was leader of the Soviet Union at that time. He was in power. And George Bush Sr. was president of the United States at that time. So, I mean, the fact that you would just come up with those two individuals who were legitimately in power at that very time is interesting. Furthermore, we'll just point out that, prior to George Bush being president, we had Ronald Reagan. Reagan and Gorbachev knew each other very well. And there were a number of instances in which both of those leaders made statements about UFOs, aliens, and the like. Reagan, of course, made many that people might be aware of, but so did Gorbachev. And there has been speculation, rumor, legitimate rumor, I would say, that indicates that the two of them communicated about this topic. So the time period's right for what you picked up on those two political leaders. I just think that's another interesting data point.
Richard, I will add to that, to one of the men in the room who I did mention on Richard Dolan's show, he's deceased, was Rear Admiral Ted Schieffer. And he was Colin Powell's chief liaison of intelligence, reporting directly to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And that is why you see number 27 emblazoned on the bottom of this film. 27 was the security level Yankee white, which was the only people that could see this video were those who had direct contact with President of the United States, which would have been George Bush, the senior at the time. And this Admiral Schieffer would have briefed Colin Powell, and we have them both in the Oval Office briefing George Bush on various subject matters. And like Richard, I'm speechless.
Also, it would be, I don't know this offhand, but I'm sure historians can tell us about Gorbachev's travel during the last years of his leadership of the Soviet Union. Relations were very positive between the US and Soviets at this time. Gorbachev was very much in, let's say, good graces with the West, with the US, with all of that. And he did travel, and I actually don't know when his travel dates to the United States could have been, but I'll bet there are people out there who could figure that out.
So, I mean, that's what I was saying about, we don't, we just get data. We just get data and we write it out. We don't know what it means. I mean, I was going, what's this guy in wool, dark skinned? I mean, and, John's just explained that to me. I didn't understand what that was. So
it's the kind of stuff that we kind of gloss over because we don't know how to put it in context. That's why it's great having these meetings with you guys, because you can fill in some of the blanks that we don't know what we're looking at in the data.
Daz, I actually asked my main whistleblower, it would be if this was Watergate, my deep throat. I asked him specifically, because this is my personality in my mind, which is, scary enough. I asked him specifically, did the monks wear their monk attire down into the interview suite at S4? And he says in a follow-up report, I have no information. Did they dress the monks in military garb or their monk attire? And from what I know of the transformative monastery in Vermont, it is very strict. There is no other. It is what they wear. They have, they do take vows of some silence, whatnot, and so I'm pretty confident that they would not have removed their monk attire and it's incredible.
Well, I think my subconscious is really fascinated by that because I did quite a lot of descriptions of this. I'm going, what is this woolen stuff? What are they wearing? And I think they might have had something on their neck, like a brooch or something.
Well, it might have been the cross, the Christian cross that they wear. I don't know, but that's it's very possible. I knew that they wore that outside their cassock and their garments and stuff at times.
So those are I mean, that's really all I had. Okay, so this is what I got in the beginning with the craft crashing. It feels like plunging down a waterfall. And there's my squid. And I was fascinated. I did 3 sessions, and almost the whole first session was about this breakaway group, 4 people in a craft. But the fact was that the craft was sentient, and that really got me. And so, and that's what I've got. But in the sessions, if you look at the sessions, you can bring out so much more because we don't know any of this stuff. So we just bring you the data and put it down. It's up to you to interpret it. So go and have a look.
Extraordinary. All of these.
I love those little data points that help, just add that little bit more of extra confirmation from us as remote viewers. Because as I said, I was marking it and I didn't even pick up on all that. I just thought it was noise. But to see that, those elements could possibly be at place at the target, it's fantastic. Well done, Carl.
Did we do all of them? All of
No, we got Brian's quickly to go through.
Brian.
Brian, do you want me to share my screen and then you
Yeah,
talk
can you
about it?
pull that up? This is my first debrief like this, so I didn't have a presentation put together.
Okay, so we start off
yeah,
here under page 1. Yep.
yeah,
06,
right away.
09,
know,
1961.
I'm picking up on a hard object, and then it feels smooth, gray, curved, shiny, shimmery, multicolored, almost like a soap bubble, where it has all the different colors in it. This is all low level data, oval, hard, smooth. I started to feel, yeah, you can see that AOL, the seashell. I put that there just because of when I first got a glimpse of what turned out to be a craft, it had kind of that iridescent look to it. And then I started feeling electricity and staticky, like, your hair on your arms would stand up, and more low level data, smooth, seamless, sterile, curved, molded. It looked at times black in the air, like it would go from visible to invisible. It had a charged feeling. This is all, low level airborne data. Then I started picking up on the energy, which turned out to be the movement of the craft. This is, what I'm picking up here is a non-surface structure that seems to be zipping around. It's nighttime. Its movements were kind of darting, zipping, erratic, evasive. That would be like if you were an eyewitness at the time, seeing it up in the sky. More low-level data there. Here I'm picking up on, it felt like there was land associated with the initial sighting. It felt hilly and green. I know you said it crashed in the ocean, so this may be noise, or it could be related in some way I'm not aware of, but it felt like there was a land associated with the craft in some way that was hilly, green. It's more low level data. Here's my first sketch. If you take the yellow off, you can see this is how I perceive the craft, as kind of seed shaped, silvery. That's just ground underneath it. And then those yellow bits are just kind of showing that it felt like it had a charge around it, like it was, I don't know if it was glowing, maybe it was glowing, but I could sense that there was some kind of electrical charge around the craft. Humming, felt ominous. Now because I'm an architect, this is like cutting a section through the craft. So you're just seeing like the end of it cut in half. So I'm just showing that the outside, it's dark, it's gray on the outside, and the inside to me felt white, very bright white, molded, plasticky. It had a plasticky feel to it. And so that's what that is there. And then I just drew one more sketch that felt like if I were there as the witness, this is what I was seeing. I'm kind of showing the motion of the craft kind of darting around the sky. And then I think just more descriptive data of the object, non-human.
Yeah, this is where you first start getting the non-human elements, isn't it, here?
Yeah. And this is just a little bubble diagram of what I was perceiving. And then then my summary: target feels like an unconventional non-surface structure with the ability to float in the air. The object feels oval, smooth, pewter in color, has some kind of electrical charge that makes your hair stand up. Inside, the structure was bright white, monochromatic, felt smooth, plasticky, and molded. Exterior environment was dark and forested. And was there one more? Okay, there we go. Also perceived the object zipping around overhead and disappearing. There was possibly more than one object in the air. The objects could go from visible to invisible, but when they were invisible, oh, I was trying to say when I perceived it kind of blipping in and out, and when it was invisible, it wasn't actually invisible. It was just not glowing, I guess is the best way to describe it. So, yeah, so
Almost
that
naturally camouflaged in a way, right?
Yeah. So my first session was all craft data, and I was kind of concerned when I handed it in because I've never had I have had a couple targets in the past that weren't necessarily UFO related that turned out to have elements of UFOs, but this my data was so overwhelmingly UAP or UFO. I when I sent it into Daz, I kind of apologized. I said I think I missed the target on this, but because it's so unusual to get alien targets. So my second session was, I don't know how to describe it. It was bizarre. From my meditation, I got very emotional. I felt when I was doing my meditation, I got a visual of this alien, and I felt like it was it wanted me to feel what it felt, and it was extremely sad. And like I said, I immediately had tears running down my face. And this was before I even started my session. And I considered not doing this session at the time because I'd never experienced this before, and I didn't know if I was going to, if it was going to negatively impact my session, or, it was just so strange. I didn't know what to make of it, and so I waited maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and then I thought, well, maybe this is important, and I need to do the session right now because of that unusual experience in my meditation. So right away, I mean, in this, so for Jon, when we're remote viewing, we are getting flashes, very quick flashes of
Right.
images, impressions, words. We're not getting
A movie.
we don't have a movie playing in our
Yeah,
head.
right.
But
Understood. Yeah.
when
That's
I
a-
started
yeah.
this session, I was overwhelmed with visual data, and so much so that I declared an AOL before I even wrote my first stage 2 word, because and Skinny Bob, if you're familiar with that video,
Yes. Yes.
yeah, so when we declare AOLs, what we're trying to do is discard that information. When we get really high level imagery, we declare it as it's an analytical overlay. And what we're trying to do is just kind of intellectually or mentally discard that so we can get back to, doing our low level data. So that was unusual to declare an AOL before I started. And then once I declared that AOL and started doing my stage 2 data, I was just getting overwhelmed with this image of this brown colored alien that had, looked like a gray, but it was brown. So you can see brown, smooth. The room felt stuffy and hot. I felt I'd never done a target where I'd felt so much emotion as I was working through the target. So here, so this is kind of important. So I did a movement exercise on my second page, and I don't ever do movement exercises this early. In a movement exercise, as a remote viewer, you have the ability to essentially move your camera around. You can, and you declare it as a movement. So you can move backwards and forwards in time. You can move above the object. And
Okay.
so I did a movement exercise because I was getting overwhelmed with this visual data of this alien. And so, I just said, view the life form in its optimal environment. And the reason I did that is I wanted to move away from what I was getting overwhelmed with and
Right.
take whatever this life form is and move it to where it normally resides. And well, if it's a human, or if I'm getting uh, you know data that isn't good, if I move, I'm going to see, if this being is a human or something, I'll see it in its living room or whatever. So I do the movement exercise and I immediately feel like I'm in a UAP. So my movement exercise didn't get me away from the alien data. So my movement exercise, you see, it's gray, sterile, metallic, smooth, routine, repetitive, robotic, staticky, electrical, purposeful, task-oriented, smooth, otherworldly.
Right.
So when I moved myself to the being's optimal environment, I found myself what looked like inside of a UAP. And then, I went on to more stage 2 data. Again, I'm back to the tan, yellowish, brownish, trapped, confined,
Yep.
unpleasant, ill, sick, unhealthy, weak, sorrow, frail. I had an AOL of a military person, AOL of a prisoner, which was probably the alien being. Did another ideogram, again, went right back to tan, small, frail, weak. Like, this being was dominating my session. I could not get away from it, which has never happened in any remote viewing I've done before. It was persistent, and it was what it was. So I've again, tan, small, frail, weak, struggle, expiring. I felt it had respiratory, circulatory problems.
Which it all had,
Uh,
according to the documents and the people we've spoken with. Yeah.
it felt,
Respiratory being the biggest issue.
and then I wrote almost dead, despair,
Yeah.
decay, toxic, helpless, dehydrated, surreal, hopeless, confusion, choking, resigned. I felt like the creature was letting go, or just
Like you
resigned.
almost witnessed the last 30 seconds of the video, which is the creature choking, coughing up black foam. Again, which I saw, he was exasperated at the end. He almost, which, if you want a pretty good animatronic person, if this is a hoax, the being almost kind of, I'll take my glass, he almost kind of sits back into the arms of the medic and just looks at the camera with this, just like this hopeless, I just call it exasperation. Like I'm defeated, and the fact that you picked up on that is shocking.
What do I have next here? I sensed a tall Caucasian should have been in my AOL category, but that's fine. Frightened, confused. This is me describing, I didn't make it clear in the data, but I also felt that the humans involved were terrified in the situation, whatever was happening. It felt like the humans were scared as well, and traumatized.
Brian, can I say, I don't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, go ahead.
I forget. Look, again, again, something no one would know. You said tall human. And when you look at and I'm going to try and describe this as accurately as I can. When you look at the film, the original VHS film, the military general to the left, which we believe is an African American male in his 40s, and we've identified him. It's not Colin Powell. Even if it is, it doesn't matter. But in relation to the camera, Army general looks like 3 times his size, towering over the viewing glass of the bean. And that always struck me because you almost had to like look back to say, oh my God, that's a face and a chest of an army person, a military person. But it's so hard to see, like to put into perception because he is so big in the screen, if that makes sense. So the fact that and again, in my opinion, towering over the bean, looking through this viewing glass, and the fact that you picked that up, tangentially, in relation to what I saw in the film is incredible.
And then I felt like I put down sick, rashy, welts, bumps. I wasn't sure, when you're doing a session, I don't we're like court stenographers. We're not going out and grabbing the data. We are just taking notes on what data is coming into us. So when we're writing things down, we're not, if we're doing it right, we're not using, let's say, our intellect. It's more that we're just like court reporters. We're dictating what we're perceiving. So let's see, this is more stage 2 data, chatter, moaning, yelling, being organic, fleshy. Let's see, indoor location, sterile, clean, outdoor location, gritty, dirty. I'm probably picking up on, where was this, Area 51? Colors, black, silver, white, tan, brown. These are just all the colors I perceived while viewing. Dark outside, fluorescent lights on the inside, low contrast. What else is? It felt
You definitely picked up on the psychic element here as well, didn't you? And
yes, yeah.
Again, it's another telltale sign for us, because how many RV sessions have you done in your life and you've picked up psychic element?
I don't know that I've ever written anything in the subcategory, which is like apparitions or psychic. And I picked up that there was some kind of psychic communication happening at the target.
Correct. Yep, that's correct. They actually call it thought projection, that where the being actually puts a picture into the telepath's brain, so to speak, or mind, which is really an effective way of communicating with another life form where you don't know their language. Can you imagine if we had that ability in the 1800s, going to the Amazon from the British Isles, being able to put, pictures of everything about the explorers into indigenous Amazonian tribes? I really think it's a really effective way of communicating when you can't verbally communicate.
So I'm moving into my stage 3 sketches, and I'm perceiving a craft. It felt like it was possibly disabled, but it didn't feel like a high-speed crash. For some reason, it felt like the descent was
Right.
slower. I don't know if that's,
And Brian, this craft did not, according to speculation, the Indian Ocean object was not related to this being's mode of transportation. So that's important. So we don't, and I have never stepped into speculating how this being became, a disabled on Earth, because I have no information on that I can really, really say. I think this is concrete. So when you talk about forest and woods and hills and slow descent, we do know that there were 2 beings in this craft, allegedly, and both survived. So allegedly, so it could be 4, it could be 6, but yeah, this did not crash, the Indian Ocean object was not the vehicle of our tan alien, just to be and so you saying about grassy, hilly, it's amazing because it's, it might refer to this being's craft.
Yeah, so I saw two beings in that sketch. I was just showing them outside of the craft so you could see that there were
Yeah.
two. And then I picked up on one, I I said it looked like I say sole survivor here. Maybe in the end he was the sole survivor. I don't know, or
Right.
whatever, he or she. So I did a quick little mind probe, and it felt mad, upset, stuck, cornered, resigned. What was my next sketch? Oh, here I'm just showing kind of a quick sketch of like an apprehension of the alien. It felt outside, nighttime, clear, cold, apprehended. And then here I'm showing a being inside of a facility and being examined somehow. I assume in a medical facility or something, but that's what I was trying to sketch. My sketches are kind of done in a timeline as I perceived the target. And I perceived it as sick, maybe expiring. And then my final sketch was, I felt very strongly about this sketch, and that's why I got out my colored markers. And I wrote tan, brown, smart, advanced, mission oriented, doing a job, reconnaissance, scouting, surveying. And then when I did a mind probe, I wrote, it felt like the being was on a mission for their purposes, not necessarily for the benefit of humanity, but not against it. It just felt
Right.
indifferent, like it had a task that didn't necessarily, in whatever it was doing, didn't necessarily involve us, or it didn't feel like it cared one way or the other how we felt about what it was doing. But that's what I picked up when I did a mind probe on it.
Extraordinary, Brian.
Because I want to say something. Again, in our investigation, aspects or topics like this, kind of open the aperture from me examining or trying to prove or disprove this film. The aperture of my investigation has grown to this facility, Project Aquarius, the umbrella program for the all contact, what I've been told, between human, Homo sapiens sapiens, and extraterrestrials. And with that being said, there was a security guard that came forward in 1990. Okay. And here is a person from 1990 saying exactly what Brian described about the craft. The security guard said a couple of the craft vibrated or gave off static electricity to the amount and to the effect where we would take Vaseline before every shift and rub it on our hair and on our arms in the back of our neck so our hair would not stand up when we went by these crafts or had to stand near these crafts during a shift in our sentry duty. So again, for those watching on the internet, how do you explain a security guard in 1990, an interview that very few people know about, talking exactly about what Brian felt and viewed in his session? Again, this is where I can't reconcile that, other than that it has to draw a conclusion of some sort of reality, because for that to be a hoax is extraordinary to me. So, and for someone to talk about how they combated the static electricity with rubbing Vaseline on their forearms and on their hair and neck, and I just found that extremely seemed like an extremely valid statement. And And Brian talking about how there's this static electricity is incredible.
But
Did
Incredible.
Victor
I don't
or
think you
anybody,
can
it-
did
it-
fluff that
anybody
up.
mention,
It's unbelievable.
did anybody mention what the aliens smelled like? Because I picked up
yeah,
on
we've all
strong,
got,
Yes.
yeah.
it's interesting. We've all got, in all of the sessions, there's that feeling of electricity because I write too, there's electric air. And I picked up on the smell too. You know, I was saying
Mhm.
it's like a mixture between the smell of snake and cat. So, and I think everybody's got smells in their sessions. It's interesting to see the data across all 4 sessions as well.
One of the
And
thing
that's-
I might be interesting to point out here, you know, this whole idea of alien being a guest of the United States government. This is something that has come up in the rumor mill for many, many years. There have been many allegations of extraterrestrial biological entities, EBEs, as they may have been called, you know, live ones, as early as even the alleged Roswell crash of 1947. One of those, if you want to get into the controversial, majestic documents, but one of those was reportedly kept at Los Alamos National Labs until it died in 1952. Another EBE, it's called EBE-2, I believe, was part of an exchange program from the early 60s to the early 80s. There was a third one that was part of another exchange from the late 70s until the late 80s or early 90s. This period here, you have the story of the Holloman Air Force Base landing, whether that was 1964, which I think would be more likely, or 1971, aliens allegedly meeting with U.S. government representatives. There was an interview that George Knapp did, I think a little over a year ago, with a man named Alfred O'Donnell, former senior manager at EG&G, who I think told him, I wish I had checked this before we started, but that there was a live being at Area 51. In fact, I think he said that one looked human. Interesting. And then there's a bunch of others. One book, though, that was a big splash at the time when it came out, and I think it's kind of been forgotten, came out almost 20 years ago by Air Force Captain Robert Collins, called Exempt from Disclosure.
Yeah.
And this is what I really just want to mention here. So it's a very interesting read. And there's a lot of stuff in there that some people will say that's nonsense, or some say it's true. But toward the later part of that book, there are 3 allegedly leaked memos, either from CIA or MJ-12, or I think really both, that, first of all, I spoke with a very, very senior former CIA individual who described those documents, who discussed them with me. And he said, I can't tell you if the information in there is true. I'm not going to get into that, but I will tell you that the jargon, the acronyms, the abbreviations, every single detail in those letters has exactly the right tone. And I think he was essentially telling me he did believe that those letters were real. But what do those letters describe? Those letters described essentially a problem that the MJ-12 group was having in their ongoing relationship with this extraterrestrial biological entity. They were calling it EBE-2. And I think in those letters, it had arrived in 1964. It was part of an exchange. So it was described as small, didn't have any hair. It had very advanced intelligence. And the thing is, it was residing in different secure facilities, including a safe house near Los Alamos National Laboratory, in this particular letter. This is letters from the early 1980s, by the way, all of these 3 letters. The alien was able to communicate in English through an implanted device in its throat. Government officials, scientists had conducted regular interviews with it. They were getting information about his home planet, which in the letter was supposed to be Zeta Reticuli star system. They were getting information on alien tech and other knowledge about the universe. So all of that I think is really interesting. And then in one of the letters, the alien actually had expressed an interest in seeing the ocean. and it might have been the same letter or the next one, it had disappeared. And I mean, it's really fascinating. You can take it for what it is, but they were wondering where the hell did this thing go? We have to find it. This is a problem. And there was all of this inside jargon that was used, which my contact said to me, that is exactly right in the way it sounds, implying to me, if that's a hoax, that is a hoax by people who knew everything that needed to be known about that particular world. So I think he found it very, very credible. So those letters allegedly, you can find the book Exempt from Disclosure. Those letters, 3 of them are toward the back end of the book. The book's controversial. First of all, it was originally one of the co-authors listed was Richard Doty. Everyone knows who Richard Doty is. People are like, that's baloney, that's nonsense, disinfo. But I will just point out, when the book did come out with Doty's name on it, Doty, was very upset about it and demanded that his name be taken off as one of the co-authors. I corresponded with Richard Doty at that time. This is 2007, 2008, and trying to get some information about it, because what it looked like, honestly, is that Doty and Collins had private communications, and that Collins just used those communications, I think, not necessarily with Doty's permission, and put them in his book. That's a whole argument. I don't really think that I can get.
And made Richard the co-author, to unbeknownst to Richard, and then never sharing any profits.
To Doty. Richard
he
Doty.
really did a number on Richard Doty.
It was an interesting story, controversy at the time. I remember it very well. But what's interesting is the information, it strikes you as Doty was just sincerely, legitimately giving this to Collins on the down low without anyone else knowing about this. And Collins used it, and then Doty said, I don't want to be associated with this. So I remembered corresponding with him about this, and he, at that time, was not helpful in answering my questions. I guess I could just say that. But the letters, again, according to my source, and I wish I could mention who he is, but I cannot. But I will just say, absolutely top of the line person who would know. He would know this. And he stated to me point blank, the language in those letters was exactly correct in every single detail. And again, if someone has the book, you go in there. It is very jargony. It's got a lot of inside language in there, which is quite interesting. And not all of it is easy to understand. So, this idea of an alien guest in quotes, from the United States government, it's a story with a history there. And honestly, how does it not make sense? If you've got this presence, you've got U.S. military, which is combing the earth for these beings, deeply interested, knowing that it exists, why would they not have one or more of these as guests, so to speak?
Find it funny too, Richard, that I'm so, thank you. It's almost like I wrote that last sentence. But thank you so much for saying that the military view most of these beings as guests, because subliminally, Victor uses a word that implies a room with a much greater comfort level for the person occupying that room when he says that we're looking at the interview suite, describing, the video starting to play the interview. And I thought, for someone to use suite instead of the interview room, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we would all say that. For Victor to subconsciously use the word suite, and knowing that from the Webster Merriam dictionary, that suite is a room that provides much more comfort for the guest, is remarkable. And I wanted to say one more thing about the ammonia smell, which I find it extraordinary that all of you basically commented on that. According to sources that I have interviewed, some of these beings have a digestive system where they intake very little food, by the way. Sometimes it's liquid or like a soluble type of fibrous food. it goes into a digestive, and this is my medical vernacular. It goes first into like a digestive tract the size of an aorta, and then it gets osmosis. Through osmosis, it goes into a smaller digestive tract as it moves through their body, the size of veins, and then it goes into subveins. And what is then released, instead of being released through the bean's anus, which it does not have, in a normal human digestive tract, it releases what's left of the nutrients, or what's left of the food it had ingested, through very small or very large capillaries through its skin, and it gives off the odor of, you guessed it, ammonia.
Wow.
I've had several people tell me that the morphology of these beans and their digestive system, and that's the way it was described. And instead of releasing it the way a human would, it releases any excess of food through their skin, and it smells like ammonia. And they actually have to wipe or scrape to some degree their skin at times, because it can be so overpowering.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
I think I wrote that it made my nose sting, and it reminded me of an old blueprint machine because they used ammonia, and yeah, I sensed the very strong ammonia smell.
I want to add one other thing. This is all fascinating. I'm so glad to be part of this. But you know, there's a very long history of large numbers of alleged retrievals, crash retrievals of these objects. We've all heard about it. We've heard about David Grush a year and a half ago talking about this. This is an old story now. This is not a new story. And this is a book by my friend and colleague, Ryan Wood. This is a revised edition, Magic Eyes Only, of a collection.
God rest his soul. God rest his soul.
Well, the Ryans are alive. Ryan's around. Bob Wood, his
Oh.
father, passed away.
His father. I'm sorry.
Bob
Go
is
ahead.
gone. Ryan is happily still with us, hopefully for a long time. But he put together more than 100 now of these alleged retrievals of non-human tech, non-human craft. And you know, I don't think Ryan would say that all of them are slam dunk, open and shut, absolutely true. But he does an outstanding job, I must say, in making the case for them. Many of them are strong cases. And we're talking a lot, and including, by the way, in the late 1980s and into the very beginning of the 90s. Like, it's a phenomenon that never stopped. It has never stopped from around the world. Sometimes Americans retrieving them, sometimes the Soviets, the Russians retrieving them. It's a very good book. The first edition was out of print for quite some time, but I was very happy that he reissued an expanded, revised version of it. So there's a lot there to work with. And in many instances, we can assume that these beings are alive. There was one of my favorite OG researchers from the past, Leonard Stringfield, got into this in the 1970s and in the 1980s, and spoke to really more than 100 witnesses, often firsthand, sometimes secondhand, might be the spouse of someone who told the story, frequently dealing with crash retrievals, dead alien bodies, and occasionally live alien bodies. Stringfield collected those, and he didn't know what to do with them. You know, you can only go so far with some of these investigations, but he collected them. He was meticulous, and he wasn't the only one. Of course, we have a lot of these. I mean, the Roswell witnesses, some of them seem to indicate that there was at least one live being from there, and lots of other crash retrievals or connections between us and them have been reported. I'm still very intrigued by the story by Dan Sherman called Above Black. It's
Wow.
controversial, but you really have to wonder. I've always found him credible, where he's talking about a communication program. And by the way, one that involves a certain amount of, let's say, remote viewing or telepathy involved in that, where the United States Air Force, in a deeply, deeply classified context, had a kind of system by which you would use computer tech. This is in the 1980s, but in communication, in a kind of a telepathic communication with these ETs, in a manner that Sherman describes it's a very unusual kind of communication. I guess I'll just leave it there, where it's not like they're just speaking in ordinary English. There's a lot of codes, there's a lot of numbers, coordinates. It's a very structured kind of system, but nonetheless, this kind of connection between us and them, or at least one group of them. They're hard to confirm, but when you start getting to the point where you've got this data point, that data point, there's the old Bill Uhouse story. Bill Uhouse was he was in the U.S. I think Marines and I think Air Force both, and he was an engineer. He worked in Nevada on reverse engineering and ET craft with an alien being he said was named J-Rod or J-Rod. You take it for what it's worth. Uhouse videos are available. You can listen to the guy. He's very believable. He's very credible. That's my opinion. You've got all of these, and then there's the Bob Lazar story. Let's not forget him. You guys did a remote view of Bob Lazar. By the way, that was an amazing remote view. And I was so pleased to be part of that discussion, by the way, Des.
Yeah.
That was incredible. And Demi, I think you were there. Were you in that part of that choral?
No, I wasn't there.
Just Demi on
No,
that
but
one.
Demi was there, and I
Yeah.
remember, and a bunch of other folks.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And
But that was
I
extraordinary.
want to thank Richard and John for helping us out.
So, anyway, there's video is good. Did I just cut out?
Yeah.
Okay.
We had a bit of a Zoom moment there. But thanks everyone for helping.
Yeah,
with
sorry
this.
about that.
As I said, us as remote viewers, I had a bit more information than the viewers, of course, because I'm the project manager. But it's very hard for us to confirm all the data points. As we said, we got 170 pages of data on this, which is way too much for us to confirm. So it's good that you guys can look through it and pick up on the bits and pieces that we don't know where to put to the story, and those little pieces generally add that extra little bit of confirmation that because it's the little details, the little points really on this thing. And for me, I was just gonna say, for me as project manager, the thing that blew me away, because I was slightly on, as I said, I was on the fence with this one, was all the data we didn't ask for, which was all the crash retrieval stuff, and that was something I wouldn't expect with a if it were just a fake video, in a room somewhere. That I don't know where that data will come from.
Great point. Great point, Daz.
Yep. Yeah.
And the emotions, the very strong emotional reaction.
Yeah.
DB had something interesting to say, I think.
No, I just wanted to ask something, because you are talking at your interview with John, both of you are talking about that crash from Indian Ocean. So either of you know something why it was so important, that crash that the alien was asked about?
I've only been told
Yeah,
that
John.
it was that there was it was interfering. There was fear of contact with one of our submersible submarines. This was at the tail end of the first Gulf War, and tensions were high, and they wanted, and what I was told, that it was disabled. The USO, this underwater submersible, was allegedly disabled, but again, I can't lend any credence to that. I don't have any, but they were very worried about it, especially with the fact that it was either during or came on the tail end of the Gulf War.
Thank you. I was asking also you and Richard, knowing about USOs, his late interesting and books, and so that's why I asked. Thank you, John. Really, really good. Thank you.
Thank you, Dim. I appreciate it. You have no idea how much all of you have. Boy, I just it's what I've said about my whole investigation. Yes, we found Victor, but the video, this is just, there is no one in the world that can walk away, especially after seeing this tonight or today, that doesn't have a raised eyebrow to say something is not right with this film. And that's all I've said for 5 years. It's other than finding Victor, something's not right with this film. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
Just so that we can all, remember to cover our behinds here. It's just useful to remind ourselves It is extraordinary. Like the hits that all of you guys got on this, it is mind blowing. And John, you're right. You are right to feel vindicated to a large extent over your defense of this video. I agree with that. I just want to, we have to say, any remote viewer will agree with this, I'm sure. This does not constitute proof that this event happened. Obviously, it can't. How can we really know? It looks very suggestive. I think that's fair to say. And I'll just say, like on a personal level, I'm convinced. I don't really need any more convincing. Like this, I believe this did happen. And I will put myself on the record and just say, the remote views that you guys did, that locks it down for me. But even so, I can't say that I know for a fact. To me, it's the best working theory. And I'll take it as probably true and as most likely the case, which I think is the case. I think it's most likely true. If there's evidence that shows us as completely spurious, fine, we'll take a look at that. Yeah. But for right now, the work that you, John, that you did, and the remote view that you guys did, come on, let's just be real here. This looks very, very persuasive.
Yeah. I think we, as the viewers looked at it, I couldn't see anything in the data that was indicating any kind of fakery in any way. There was no data that indicated trickery of any kind, and the emotional responses from the viewers to this seems to indicate to me that this was real. As I said, I have to go with what Richard said. What we do is not proof, but I think it's another data point. If you add it as another data point in looking at data points to verifying this kind of information, it helps along that way. And as I said, I was sat on the fence a little bit beforehand, but seeing the RV data, I'm a bit more off the fence with it now. And
again,
we call it putting another piece in our mosaic. So I like that data point. Yeah, that's all.
To emphasize one last time, you remote viewers were completely blind. You started with a possibility of infinity. That's where you started. It could have been anything. You had no inkling that this could be an ET target. Brian, you were apologizing because you were so on target with an alien. But all of you all zoned in on exactly the same thing. And as Daz pointed out, with all of this peripheral information that was not in the video itself, which speaks to how you characterized what the target would be, Daz. You said, we're going to focus on what actually happened, what this truly represented, not cultural baggage or anything like that. So all of that's it's remarkable. And, for those people, if they're watching this and they don't really understand remote viewing, there's a lot of people out there that don't really understand it. I would just say, before you condemn it, take some time and understand what this actually is. It isn't something that most of us grew up believing in. At least I'm speaking for myself. Like, it just seemed that's not possible. But when you start really looking into it, and then you start recognizing that we're not living in, the 1890s of Victorian materialistic science and worldview. We're a little bit past that. There is science that can support the validity of remote viewing. I don't know about how we truly understand it. Do we really get it? I don't know about that. But the door is open for this to being real. And the evidence, in my view, I've looked at enough of it in my time. It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. And I just congratulate all of you, the whole team, for doing this and picking this target. You took a real chance, Daz.
As I said, Sean Haslett put us together. I saw your guys' video the year before, but never thought about reaching out to John to do this. And it was, and fair play to the guys as well, because they put a lot of time and effort into doing this, and they did it voluntarily.
I want to say one more thing. I'm sorry. I was almost a little nervous about interviewing John a year ago. John, you probably know this. I did not feel completely comfortable doing an interview on this film, because I know just how controversial it is. And there's all kinds of people throwing rotten eggs at it and rotten tomatoes at it, saying it's fake, it's a hoax. Heard this for years. It's almost a knee-jerk reaction in the UFO, UAP community where,
Right.
you know, we've been almost trained
Yes.
to reject anything that can't be absolutely confirmed by the government, because people are afraid to put themselves out there. No one wants to look like a fool. No one wants to be the person who said, "Oh yeah, I think it's true," and then it's shown to be a fake. That's embarrassing, and so people just run away. That's the safest thing to do. And I had that very instinct when I was approached by, there was an intermediary who brought you to me, John, if you recall. And I didn't really know if I wanted to do it. But what won me over was talking to you, John. And I realized this guy, like, I didn't know who you were. I had no
Right.
idea.
Right.
And here's what I learned from talking with you. You were 1,000% sincere. You were dedicated. You had thrown your energy into this. You're like Don Quixote, chasing, seemingly, there's that windmill, I'm going to chase after it, but it wasn't a windmill. It was real. And you went after it. You didn't care what everyone else was saying. And I will tell you, I respected that. And I respected the fact that you were willing to put yourself out there and that you did the work to put your case together and the investigation of Victor and everything else concerned with this video. And I just thought, you deserve to have people hear you, to make your case. And so I'm glad we did that interview. And I'm just shocked, Daz, that you organized these amazing remote viewers to
Thank you. I'm
just
humbled at
follow
your
up on
words.
it.
I really am.
As I
Very
said,
humbled at your words. Thank you.
all our work is off the back of what you guys did with, with the initial film, or John's work on it since, and your guys' interview. We wouldn't have done it if I hadn't seen that interview. So it's a happy coincidence of events.
Yeah.
Well,
Anyway.
It was kind of a part of UFO lore that I remember when the show came out 27 years ago, and I was not convinced. I was on the fence as well, and it was one of those stories that just fell into a hole. Nobody talked about it really for a quarter of a century.
Yeah, they
So-
call it the forgotten. They call it the
Yeah.
forgotten video. And it's true.
Mm.
Thank you for saying that, Brian.
Excellent, guys. Well, we've been here for quite a while now, and I just want to thank you all for participating. And John, good luck on all this, and if we can help with anything else, and Richard as well, if there's anything you want to work on, I can put together teams of people to look at anything for you.
Yes, I love you guys. I think you're all amazing.
Excellent.
It's just incredible stuff. I mean, honestly, as I say, I've been interested in remote viewing for a while. I don't do it myself, and I'm no expert, but I'm interested but what you do, what you organize, your guys are top level. I'm
Here.
always astonished.
The guy's
here, here.
good. They've put in. I have to be honest. All of us have put in the years to get to this stage. It takes. A long
I
time.
wonder, this is behind the scenes stuff maybe, but I really wonder what, like, the whole remote viewing community, because I'm not in on it.
Yeah.
But every now and then I get these glimmers of competition, ego.
Yeah.
I'm better than that one. I'm better than that one over there. I can't believe that remote view. And, like, I don't know. So I really wonder, because it's like any other community, really, where you've got the inside people. But I do wonder how other people in the remote viewing community will respond to this. For me, I'm blown away and so proud to be a part of this conversation.
Yeah, me too. And I totally agree with you. Much like what it's like on Twitter X and everywhere else, it's RV has you know what it's like. It has its problems like every other
Drama.
community.
There's always drama.
There's always drama. And as you said, we took a chance, when we also did the Lazar thing, because people think the same thing about that. But I'm one of these people, and I think the viewers are in this team as well, that if we get data, it is what it is. We have to put it out there. We're not putting any of our personal biases on any of this. In the end, only evidence and time will tell what happens with this.
Well, there's so many loud voices who are insistent on a case being BS or not being. When I many years ago, I spent about 10 or 11 pages writing about Bob Lazar for the second volume of my historical study, UFOs in the National Security State. This is back in, I'm writing about him in 2006, 2007. Book was published in 2009. And I will tell you, that was one of the most controversial subjects of that book. And there were many people in advance of that telling me Lazar was total bullshit. I shouldn't be writing about it. The amount of pressure on me to have a negative conclusion on him was very strong. Yeah. And I did not come to that conclusion when I looked at his case. I was just going on the story that I was able to amass at that time. But I guess my point is there's always so much pressure in the UFO community, probably the remote viewing community too, but certainly in the UFO community, pro or con certain cases. And you come out in favor of a particular case, if there's a whole army of skeptics out, well, you have to be prepared. You better have a thick skin, and you better be prepared for a lot of people coming to smear you or to smear your conclusions.
Yeah,
it's reality.
Yeah.
We just remote viewers, we just put our heads down and viewing, that's all. Yeah. And we're not always viewing aliens as well. We do all sorts of different things. Yeah. So
excellent. Well, thanks guys for all this, and thanks for everyone for joining in and coming along, and for everyone here for putting in all the time and effort that everyone does on all this as well to try to get the truth out there. Awesome work.
What
a pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Jon, thank you, Richard. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
God bless all of you.
Bye.
I just wanted to point out that that thing for me was absolutely amazing, and I think it validates more your experience from remote viewing, because everybody has a different kind of feeling or a different experience during RV, and yours it was like much colorful but much beautiful in a way. I don't know what other can think, but in my experience as a remote viewer, I thought it was absolutely amazing. And I think Coral think the same.
Yeah, because in remote viewing, you don't normally feel like emotions. They like break through. They break through in things. So it's like you cry. When I've been tasked several times with somebody's death, right? And I have no idea that I'm doing that. But I suddenly start crying in the middle of the session, and my tasker says, normally I'm monitored. My tasker says, don't worry, carry on. Yeah. And so it's like the breakthrough thing, that breakthrough emotion that really gives you validation for your session.
Yeah, if you guys think it's great, this is my first thing that is kind of public, so I just wanted to make sure that everything looked.
Just started remote viewing, and there you are already public. Amazing.
And what a way of being public. What a way of describing all these. So absolutely.
I don't normally use color. I felt really I only colored the alien, but so, and I know that color can be frowned upon in remote viewing, but it was data to me. Like the color was data. That's why I put it in there.
But also Daz and Coral use colors.
I do now, yeah.
You saw my drawings; they're all colored in.
Yeah.
That's why I stay on paper, because I get my hands in and I color with my fingers. So it was amazing, and I felt even more strongly having direct feedback from people who seem to know a lot more than we managed to understand by our sessions. So that was wow, and I felt more emotional after that as well, because when you look at that, especially that video you sent, does that poor creature.
Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah, it looks, it's always looked a bit distressing, but seeing it again after all these years, it's like, oh yeah. If it's real, it's not. It's is we don't treat these things very nicely. It's no wonder they treat us, the same kind of way.
I thought the stuff about the monks blew my mind. Getting, that court feedback, that was amazing.
Yeah, that was there's nothing anywhere. There's no, you can't, I looked for what were they really wearing? There's absolutely nothing. But they do talk about the telepaths, so wow.
So
Yeah,
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, that was like amazing because those two had done so much research.
Yeah.
They knew, because as I said at the time, when you remote view, I mean, I get feedback and I still don't understand what was going on. It's like, and when you have to do like this debriefing, it's like, I don't know how to explain my session. I still don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there were a lot of unknowns. I mean, Demi, you had the place and that.
Yeah. Based on your guys' data, now that you've had, feedback and you've met John, the client, you've seen the video, and, we've got as much feedback as we're going to get at this point on it. What are what are your opinions on your data? Do you think that the video portrays something that's more real than faked? Does it look like a puppet, or does it look like a real? Did it feel like a real life form to each of you?
Oh, it felt real to me, very real. But
I was thinking of that thing that I have in my session, being a puppet and marionette, it's called, and I was thinking, did I've got something and it didn't went well? Maybe it was a puppet. I have like second thoughts after you told me that of this, and I thought, and after that I was thinking and trying to remember the feeling during the session, and it was not. It was not. It was real, for me at least.
Because, I mean, we were getting lots of side information. For a start, the craft and the crash. And we were all immediately drawn to the craft. And I was listening to Jason Shirker the other day, who was talking about crafts that are sentient and that controlled by melding with the drivers, the pilots. And that was exactly the thing that I'd got then. I thought, oh, maybe I viewed this instead of that. Yeah. And but the emotional feeling about somebody not well, I mean, I totally I had a picture of them being small, big-headed, and nearly, the emotional feeling we got of somebody who wasn't well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I viewed like people or clones or something before, and I've always said synthetic. And this didn't pop up in any of our sessions.
Right.
Like when you're viewing like a kind of a humanoid or a power form or something like that looks humanoid, but there's something, not completely right.
Yeah.
It always comes up in the session somehow.
Yeah. I think, and this is just from my point of view on this, I think, and I didn't expect this at all, but all four of you described a UFO and then a crash, maybe not a crash, but a UFO impact event and a retrieval operation. And I thought afterwards, that's really interesting because I hadn't thought of it, and I don't know if John had ever thought any of that because the main aim was the actual filming event
The
itself.
interview.
But it makes sense in a way because we're remote viewers and we know that where we sent you to look at the interview filming, but within the whole target, because it doesn't, that's the middle of the target really. We don't know what happens to the creature afterwards, and you guys obviously went to before the filming event, and of course it's obvious really that as remote viewers we are usually drawn to the most luminous, energetic entropy event to do with targets. And an energetic craft that can transcend time and space that comes to the ground is going to be a hugely
A
you know,
huge attractor.
yeah, a huge attractor for the psychicness to hone in on.
Yeah.
So it makes sense really, and I don't know why me and John didn't think of it beforehand really, but for me that adds huge amounts of weight to your guys' data, because no one's ever talked about, you know, how where did the creature come from, you know, how did it come about, you know, which country did it come from, you know, all the circumstances of that. So for me, it added weight. Although I don't know, I still don't know how I feel about the whole film. I'm like weighted now. I think I'm off the fence more. I'm like 65% it being real, maybe still 35%, you know, that it's possibility that it's not. But I think your guys' data had a huge more weight in the direction of it being real to me. Especially the retrieval data I found, you know, because if it was a fake event and it was literally just some people in a room faking a alien kind of, you know, interrogation thing, that data wouldn't exist anywhere. So you guys wouldn't pull the exact same data and describe the exact same things. You know, that would make no sense for me where that data would come from, that fate, you know, if that was kind of made up or imaginary.
Well, even the story about the telepaths, I mean,
Yeah.
you couldn't see them there, but we knew they were there, and
Yeah.
I've got that. So
Yeah.
Yeah, for
It's,
me, that's the single most impressive data point is nobody, I mean, I'd never heard of those monks before. And the fact that you picked up on those and John said that they were there, that blew me away, really.
yeah, and we wouldn't have known if John hadn't have done that
Mhm.
research. So
Absolutely.
I
Yes,
mean,
Yeah.
because he's releasing very few information on that. Probably he want to validate it on some point in some other way. So that's why probably he's not telling everything about what he knows about.
Yeah, he has I believe there's a pay-per-view documentary film that he just finished filming that's coming out is it this month?
He
yeah,
says
it's
it's gonna
out.
come in on holiday on Halloween. So
Oh,
I think it's out. I think I remember it's like $10.
right. Okay. I'll have to
I
see if
don't
I
think it's a
can
big.
download it and have a look at it. But apparently he tracks down the Victor guy and, you know, the guy that released the video, and there's a lot more evidence in there. And I also think that his previous talk with Richard Dolan is quite informative as well, because he
Yeah,
goes through a lot of the new supporting data he's managed to get his hands on over the last few years to support the film as well. As I said, I'm 65% or more thinking it's real now. There are a few things that niggle me, like it's very dark, and you know the darkness is in favor of someone faking a piece of footage, because you know the darkness can hide a lot of things. But it makes sense that an environment for you know a non-human being would be dark in nature, you know, especially with their big eyes, because obviously they'd have a sensitivity to the light anyway with big dark eyes like
most
that.
interesting thing for me after the feedback, after the talk was that, well, I did the Bob Lazar thing,
Yeah.
and in Bob Lazar thing, I've got aliens, and I drew it exactly like you drew it, Brad. And
Mhm.
I've got the thing that they are feeding through their skin, and they are emanating things through their skin. So I think it was the most amazing thing. It's already coming like, oh my, it's true also that in a way.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
But I'm sure that there's also different, different types of aliens as well.
also that, yeah, of course.
So, and it was mentioned there that there could have been a different type in the room as
Yeah.
well.
Mhm.
The
Yeah,
the other data point you guys and all of you, including Susan, picked up on this really well in your RV sessions, and it's in the video film as well. There's in the video film, if you watch it, there's this little blippy thing that's going up and down, this little like electronic
Very,
radar thing, you know, the
yeah.
kind of thing you have on a graphic equalizer with a voice kind of thing. And
mm,
all of you in your RV sessions talking about, you know, words like a radar type thing, a repeating
Frequency.
frequency, a
yeah,
sound
Yeah.
yeah.
thing. So yeah, that was another valid data point. I was thinking, oh, that's really interesting, because that's a really important point. John talks about that quite in depth in his talk
Yes.
with Richard in
Right.
the first video
Yes.
that they did.
Um, So, I mean, it is possible to remote view a thought form or, something construct, and we know this. Um, at the same time, I mean, why shouldn't there be aliens? It's like,
Yep.
who, it's obvious that they are present. It's obvious that we've also got capabilities that go way beyond what we know about as well.
Yep.
But I don't think it's only ours. I definitely think and I mean, when I first started learning from Lynn, we're talking 20 years ago, he always talked about the alien technology exchange. And I mean, it was like a known fact back then that that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
And in some of these, in some of the feedback I was listening to, reverse engineering the craft and things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been known for that many years. So
Yeah.
I don't see why it can't. Why all the thing about setting it up?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the evidence is out there that there's been crash retrieval programs going on since the 40s. And Richard did a really good job as well of going through some of the major ones that have happened, some of the major crash events. As he said, it's all in that book. I got a copy of that book. It's a pretty fantastic book, that Magic 12 book. So it's worth anyone reading that. Excellent, guys. Well, you did a great job on this, as always. We'll put this information out. Oh, we'll add this bit that we've just talked to maybe the end of the video that we've done as well. Just so that the anyone that's watching it can get a bit of more of an idea of you guys without John and Richard in there
Yeah.
as well.